Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another election prediction video. This time we're covering the best case scenario for Senate Democrats in 2024. So I've done this video a few months ago and things have changed since then. So we're just going to look at the best case scenario for Senate Democrats. Realistically, what's their ceiling? So let's say everything goes right for them. We'll say that Harris does well in the Electoral College, which will help buoy up Democrat chances in all these battleground states. So let's just get right into it and fill out the safe blue states. Virginia, New Mexico are definitely just safe blue, just right off the bat here. So let's just begin with the first few states. Nevada and Arizona are already polling extremely well for Democrats. They're up here by likely blue margins in both these states. And I don't think, even in a best case scenario, that Ruben Gallego beats Kari Lake by over 10. I don't think it's going to happen. I think it'll probably be like a high single digits victory in a best case scenario, something like 8 or 9% in a best case for him. It's still a very even state presidentially, and polarization is going to bring it down. But I think in a best case scenario, it still goes likely blue. In Nevada, again, with Sam Brown, he's just not doing well. The Republicans are not even putting as much money in this race as other Senate races at this point. So, in a best case scenario, Rosen wins by about 9. So, just shy of a safe blue margin. Let's head to the next few states. Nebraska, again, it's such a Republican state. It was won by Trump by about 19 points, I believe, in 2020. And even though Osborne, I think he actually narrowly leads the polls on average here, even though Osborne's leading, it's all his internals, basically, except for a split ticket Survey USA poll that had it even. It's usually his internals, that polls sponsored by him, that have him up here. So I think the best case for him is if he's able to get it within a lean um, rating for this race. I think Fisher would probably, even in a best case scenario for Democrats, Fisher wins by 4. Still, I think polarization is going to come down hard on Osborne in this state. In general, I think it's a likely R rating normally, but in a best case scenario, it's lean Republican. So no independent victory here in Nebraska, which would honestly be pretty interesting to see. In Maryland, up next, in a best case scenario for Democrats, I think also Brooks beats Larry Hogan by like 12%. Again, he's keeping the race decently close, but more and more polls are coming out showing also Brooks winning by over 10% in the state of Maryland. So, again, polarization is going to come down on Larry Hogan, especially in a best case scenario, he loses by over 10. We'll head to Pennsylvania, Michigan, Wisconsin. We'll kind of do all three of those while we check out the polls there. But in Pennsylvania, Bob Casey, again, the race is a bit narrowing in some polls, but I could see Casey winning by a likely blue margin in a best case scenario. Again, he has a pretty strong history as an incumbent. It's just that David McCormick is just getting tons of money in this race. I think he spent a lot of his money as well on this race to try to make it competitive in money talks and elections. But in a best case scenario for Democrats, I think Casey wins here by a likely blue margin. In Wisconsin, I also think in a best case scenario, she wins here by a likely blue margin. And she's already up on average by 4. So it's not really that far fetched to see that happen. In Michigan, can Alyssa Slotkin win by over a 5% margin? I just want to take a look at the polling really quickly. She's up by 3.8. I think it's definitely possible for her to win by a likely blue margin in a best case scenario. So I would probably put it as likely blue if everything goes right for the Senate Democrats. So they're already at 48 seats with likely blue states. Now we get into the real hard ones. So in Ohio, so far Sherrod Brown, he's still leading. He's at 2.6% in the polling right here. So I think in a best case scenario, he can win by a lean blue margin even though it's a R+8 state. I think he could pull it off, especially in a best case scenario. In Montana, however, this is probably going to be one of the hardest swing states for Democrats to win right now. Even in a best case scenario, I think Tester's going to struggle here because Shea's up by 6 points on average. A lot of this is due to a lot of right leaning polls being conducted in this state that show Sheahy leading by a pretty solid margins. But this is a best case scenario, and you never know with a smaller state. Like in Maine, for example, back in 2020, a lot of people wrote off Susan Collins, and she still won, even being down by a likely blue margin. So the very well same could have happened in Montana, even though it's a more Republican state in a best case scenario. So again, Sheahy's not hitting 50% on average here. So if Tester somehow pulls off the biggest comeback in history, which I honestly don't think will happen, but this is a best case scenario video, so it's theoretical that he could possibly win here. So it could happen. Sometimes 20% chances happen where the Democrat somehow pulls off a historic come from behind victory. It could very well happen, especially in a best case scenario. But it's pretty unrealistic that we see him win, but you never know. It's never a sure thing. There's been a lot of Republican polls there. He could be only behind by like 3 or 4 points. But looking at this race, can Colin Allred beat Ted Cruz? I'm going to say yes. Again, we look 47 to 44. Cruz usually underperforms his polls, by the way. 2018, he led by 7 and he only won by 3. So I think it's very realistic that Cruz could lose the Senate race here, especially if Harris gets Texas like to a 3 or a 2 point win for Trump. I think that's definitely doable here for Colin Allred to somehow pull off a win, and especially in a best case scenario. And then we take a look at Florida. And again, I just think it's really tough to see how Rick Scott loses here. I think he's just too much of a heavy favorite. She has never led in a single poll yet, unlike Cruz and Tester, which led some polls at least. Again, with the Democrat here, I think the best case she could kind of hope for is like Scott only winning by like a tilt Republican margin or something in a best case scenario for Democrats. I don't think it's going to happen. Even a best case scenario, like if Harris gets Florida down to 3, I still think Scott's going to win here. So in a best case scenario for the Democrats, in the Senate, they get 51 seats to the Republicans' 49 seats. Realistically, that's the best thing the Democrats can honestly hope for. I just don't think Florida and Nebraska are going to flip, even if everything goes right for them. But other than that, this is their ceiling for the Senate. So let me know what you think of this video down in the comments below. What do you think the Senate Democrats' ceiling is? I'm curious to hear what you guys think about that. Other than that, thanks so much for watching. If you're new to this channel, I'd highly recommend subscribing. You enjoy videos like this. Well, I'll see you all in the next one. I'm going to be doing a best case for Senate Republicans next, so I'll see you then.